I'm Bambi Francisco for Vader TV, the network for innovators. Well, one of the more popular platforms to express yourself online is Slide. The San Francisco-based company was recently valued at $500 million, and it has more than 50 million users on Facebook alone, drawn to such hits as Super Poke, Funwall, and Top Friends. Joining me to talk about Slide is Max Levchin. He is the founder and CEO. Max, congratulations on the $50 million raise and the company's success, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I like your shirt.
Thanks. Standard uniform.
Slide has really taken off since creating its application for Facebook, and that was great distribution for the company. And you were one of the first ones that created an application, and you're also one of the more successful ones. So what was the key to becoming one of the more popular applications?
Well, I think the key success to the success on Facebook was actually our existing popularity and experience that we've gained building social apps for earlier platforms like MySpace and Bebo, High Five. Some of the more primitive earlier exercises in the world of social applications was really germinated by the fact that the little serendipitous things like MySpace allowing arbitrary embed codes to appear in their pages. So we spent 2 years building widgets and various enhanced versions of those concepts, primarily on MySpace and other social networks, and brought all that experience to Facebook. So when the Facebook platform launched, even though it was very new to us, we had a very good idea of what users like and what they want. And so we sort of got right to the chase of giving them entertainment, self-expression, communication through entertainment. And so that's, I think, how that came about.
So you had a very good idea of how to distribute across these social networks.
Yes,
which is
the social mechanisms that make people share what they love or express themselves where they normally wouldn't is something we had several years of learning. And so catering to that exact impulse is probably the key.
Which a lot of people never thought of. When people think of traditional distribution models, and way back in Web 1.0, it was just buy a banner on a portal and or strike a deal with a big media company. So as you thought about how to distribute Slide way back when in the social networks, why did you think, and it's fascinating that your distribution is really across these social networks, High Five, Bebo, Facebook, MySpace. Why did you choose to partner with the social networks?
The genesis of that thought process was something that I had actually thought of several years ago, and it was basically the realization. Actually, I can tell you exactly when the thought occurred. I was skiing in Utah, and I was standing in some ski lodge 4,000 or maybe 6,000 feet up, and waiting for a snack, and there was a tiny little internet cafe in the lodge. And it was like in the middle of the mountain. I'm in my boots, and with the poles at hand, and there's a guy sort of loafing in with his boots on to check presumably his email. He goes up to the web terminal. He has stand-up terminals because he can't really sit down in gear, and he logs onto MySpace instead of Hotmail or Gmail or whatever. And he was maybe 18, 19 years old, and I realized that basically what you're drawn to online has shifted very fundamentally from online mail, which was for my generation of web users was really amazed with, and the idea of being able to check your email anywhere was very powerful. That shifted further into the idea of checking up on your friends, as well as your messages, as well as your comments and posts and that good stuff. And it sort of hit me right there that basically the new desktop is your MySpace page.
Right, exactly.
And so then the question was, well, if it's a desktop, there'll be applications, and if there'll be applications, they'll need to be social and interesting because that's what that particular desktop is all about. And so the company was really shaped by that thought, very powerful. And so
it's true. I don't know what the percentage is, in terms of what percentage of your media time you spend on social networks, but I'm sure it's quite a lot these days.
I think it's probably, I would venture to guess that that's probably the fastest growing email replacement segment and TV replacement segment. I don't have any scientific numbers.
Or maybe they're doing it all at the same time.
Well, I think that those are the two segments where that are being drawn from as
Right.
people go and spend more time on Facebook, more time on MySpace.
Right.
They're actually spending less time on things like web email because it's substitutional in nature.
Sure.
And possibly even less time on TV because the social entertainment is as powerful as produced entertainment.
Right, and they're getting entertainment online anyway. So now let's just talk about your growth. You have 144 million unique visitors per month across, I guess, your widgets, right? 84 million installations. That's sort of people downloading the slide. So what are your plans to keep up that growth?
Keep coming up with things that people want.
How often do you release a new product, a new feature?
We release software about 5 times a day. So
What? You release new items 5 times a day?
Yeah, we
Just little
try to go
tweaks,
for
huh?
the granular approach. It's usually relatively substantive.
How many engineers do you have?
Company's 72 people, about 2/3 are in product design and production.
And are you coding too?
Very rarely, unfortunately. I'd like to
Okay.
code more often, but CEOs
Skiing
tend
at
to
this
interviews.
doing a lot of skiing because that's a lot of time when you actually get your ideas. Now, Snap started putting ads on its widgets, so monetization is beginning. How are you monetizing your business?
It's actually a whole bunch of different ways, and I think one of the ways you can keep up the distribution growth, as you put it, is you don't fixate on getting profitable immediately, even though it's tempting because the distribution is so huge. If you just hit a penny for every widget view per day, it would be rolling around in cash. But the nature of social networks is still very, very dynamic. There's no real stability, both among the users and their tastes and interests, and the platforms themselves are still changing very rapidly.
Sure.
So the focus for the company for the foreseeable future, I believe, should be on growth and scaling and making sure the distribution is very strong and not really worrying about getting to the immediate break-even point. But as a corollary or sort of an exception that proves the rule, the other thing that we're really focused on is figuring out scalable revenue streams. So instead of trying to squeeze the last dollar to the profitability, we're much more interested in figuring out revenue streams that go from $1 to $1 million a month or a day or whatever.
Do you have a sense of what that is?
Well, advertising is kind of the obvious place, and
How much advertising are you making now? I mean, you certainly have enough traffic.
Not saying yet.
Why not? It's only you and
Either
I and the camera. Disregard the camera.
It's either because it's so much that I don't want to tip off my competitors, or it's so little it's embarrassing. It's actually it's going pretty well. It's
Double-digit millions.
we'll see. We'll see at the end of the.
But it's primarily advertising. You're not a subscription.
Right now,
you don't
so
plan to have any
we've tried the
subscriptions.
subscription model with SuperPoke, which is one of the more interesting properties that we have because it's so high production. Most of the stuff we do, yes, it works actually reasonably well. It's interesting that I think it proves several points that are going to be withheld from this interview for competitive purposes, but
people willing to pay to poke people.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing. But
they're paying.
Yeah, absolutely.
$1?
They pay $5 per month subscription.
To poke as many people as they want.
To poke with very specific premium pokes.
Amazing what people will pay
special,
for.
If you're if you need your super poking needs addressed, there's inelastic demand and.
So you're a $500 million market cap company. I know you haven't mentioned too much about the advertising, but can you sort of give us a ballpark how much you're making in revenue and are you profitable? It sounds like you're not profitable because you're growing. When do you plan on being profitable?
It's one of these things where you put that on camera somewhere and it's going to come back to you in a boardroom, so I'd rather not.
In the next couple of years?
Oh yeah, certainly. Next couple of years would be that's a good outer edge. If I'm not profitable in the next couple of years, either this market is still growing so fast that I just have simply no time for it, or I'm really screwing it up. And
well, I'm sure that in the next couple of years, a lot of things could happen. I've seen a number of reports that, in fact, that television report I saw you on when I was on the plane, and you were talking about how you'd sold PayPal to eBay at $1.5 billion, and Slide, even though it's $500 million, it's you're not looking at $1.5 billion for a sale and an exit. So first of all, how long before that exit, and do you see it as a sale? And would you sell for $1.6 billion?
I can't say a lot of time is spent figuring out those exact questions. Most of the time I spend figuring out how to super poke people better. But I think there are two things that drive the thoughts about exit. And one of them is you have to have a goal in mind in terms of creating enterprise value that is exit worthy. I think the option to take it public or to sell it if there's a buyer or whatever is an important thing to strive for, but it's certainly not the end. It's the means. And the goal is to build a sustained, profitable company that's still around 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out. And so I really don't spend that much time figuring out, with 1.6 is when I start getting interested. I start getting interested in taking it public when it's the right time to take it public. But, and it's not I'm despite having lived through the PayPal IPO and sort of having some battle scars from it, I think that was a pretty zesty affair, and I probably wouldn't mind doing it again. But
leaning toward a sort of a slide IPO and then a secondary offering and then a sale. I remember that. The bankers loved you.
Yes, they collected their 7% or whatever every time.
Many times.
But the more realistic and important reason to consider your exit options, or certainly your liquidity options, is your employees. I think it's very difficult to maintain that many people's attention on something that is a dream and therefore an illiquid stock. And so I think at Slide, and much like at PayPal, we have a particularly good team that is motivated by the vision, by the fact that we're pioneering this huge market. No one really knows exactly what's going to happen in social networks. Maybe it'll be one more big one, or is it done? Is it going to be a big shootout between MySpace and Facebook, or will MySpace just keep the crown and Facebook will be this something else? So before